Greetings, horror stories. I'm Jennifer. I dare to share my story with you through your channel. It is not a paranormal story, but it is quite terrifying and has marked me for many years. What I'm going to tell happened to me and two friends on the 505 highway, leaving San Francisco for Oregon. A 9-hour trip, we estimated. We had planned a vacation of a few weeks all year. We initially planned to leave early on Friday morning, but one of my friends had to work late that day, and we didn't want to wait until the next day. I was driving and, honestly, I don't like driving at night, but I really wanted to get to the hotel early on Saturday and make the most of the day. I knew I would have plenty of time to rest later. We were listening to music and chatting, but halfway through the trip we were already eager to find a store or gas station to go to the bathroom and buy something to eat. We were looking for a gas station, and a few minutes later we saw one. I immediately pulled off the road and parked. It was completely dark. It was very late. After eating something and having a coffee at the gas station, we headed back to the car. One of my friends offered to drive, but I told him it was fine and we could continue the trip. When we left, we could barely see a few meters ahead due to the poor lighting. We got in the car, and as I was backing up to get back on the road, I suddenly felt a small bump. We were surprised. It was unexpected. When I got out of the car, I saw that it had collided with another vehicle that was parked incorrectly, but luckily it had not caused any damage. My friends urged me to hurry up and leave, so I listened to them and we left quickly. Honestly, I didn't want to stay and find out who owned it. A few minutes after returning to the road, I saw in the rearview mirror that the same car I had collided with was following me. I immediately panicked, even though I knew I hadn't caused any damage or left any visible marks. However, I was afraid that the owner would come to confront me. I told my friends I would turn on the emergency lights and pull over to talk to him and resolve the situation, but they warned me not to, saying it was too dangerous. We were 3 women alone in the middle of the night on a deserted road, not knowing who could be in that car or what their intentions could be. Everything was ready for something bad to happen. I continued driving, but the car behind us was getting closer and closer, forcing me to speed up even more. At one point, the car came so close that it hit us hard, sending our suitcases flying forward. Olivia was not wearing a seatbelt and was thrown between the seats. In the midst of confusion and anger, I began to scream and speed up even more, aware that the person behind us did not have good intentions, putting our lives at risk. While Betty asked me to slow down, but the car was so close that I couldn't stop without it hitting me. Olivia, from the back seat, rolled down the window and yelled at the driver to stop, saying that we would call the police even though that was a lie. None of us had a cell phone signal on that road. At that time, mobile phones were not as advanced as they are now, so losing signal in the middle of the road was normal. Of course, those screams did not make the driver stop. We were in shock. We just wanted to get to some town or gas station, any place where we could find people and ask for help. Suddenly, the driver swerved over and caused another rear-end collision. I lost control of the car, and after trying several maneuvers to recover it, we ended up veering off the road. Everything became chaos, and luckily we didn't suffer any serious injuries, just a few scratches and a huge scare. During that moment, an overwhelming silence filled the car until we realized what had just happened. At that moment, the first thing I did was try to start the car while my Olivia and Betty made sure the doors were securely closed. Meanwhile, the vehicle that was chasing us slowly parked behind ours, and my car, to make matters worse, wouldn't start. It is difficult to describe the fear we felt at that moment. We were in the middle of the road with a madman, not knowing what he could do to us. It was one of the most vulnerable moments I have ever experienced. We could only wait to see if anyone would get out of the car, and they did. Suddenly, we heard someone open the driver's door and get out of the vehicle. To our surprise, it was a woman armed with a shotgun, dressed in a military uniform and with a shaved head. The woman, no more than 50 years old, pointed the gun at us as she slowly approached. We got scared and started crying uncontrollably. We knew we were in trouble, and that getting out of this situation would be difficult. Suddenly, the woman approached and stopped at my door, repeatedly hitting the window with the shotgun. I didn't want to open the door, and the girls begged me not to, but the woman laughed cynically and fired a shot into the air. Then he told me to get out of the car, or he would kill us. At that moment, we looked at each other, sharing the same terror in our eyes. We knew we had to act cautiously, but we were completely in trouble, facing a situation that surpassed any nightmare we could have imagined. The armed woman, with a cold and merciless expression, insisted that he get out of the car. My sweaty hands shook as I struggled with the dilemma of obeying or resisting, not knowing which option would be safer. I opened the car door and got out, feeling the woman's piercing gaze on me as I faced an uncertain fate. I begged her to forgive me for the incident at the gas station, but she yelled at me to shut up, adding that the impact had woken up her baby who was in the car seat. I apologized again, explaining that I didn't know there was a baby inside the car. I thought it was empty, and that the collision was an accident. However, she yelled at me to shut up and get on my knees. From inside the car, I only heard the screams and cries of Betty and Olivia. The woman turned around and stared, and without saying a word, approached my colleagues, grabbed them by the hair towards the ground, as if they were trash. My hands were shaking and my mind was blank, unable to process the brutality of the situation. I begged the woman to leave them alone, promising that we would not call the police or file any kind of complaint. But his cold and merciless eyes did not show even a hint of compassion. Once they were out of the car, the woman forced them to kneel on the ground next to me. He looked at us with a mixture of contempt and twisted satisfaction on his face. We felt completely vulnerable, at their mercy, with no way to escape. I thought it was the end of us. The terror we felt was indescribable. We couldn't stop crying and screaming. The woman turned to her car and told us that we had made her baby cry once again. She ran to her vehicle and returned with a baby wrapped in a blanket in her arms, cradling him and kissing him non-stop. However, it turned out to be a doll. He told the baby to calm down, that Mom was with him, and that nothing would happen to him. We looked at each other, unable to believe that we were facing a completely disturbed woman, and feeling completely lost, wondering how we could reason with a crazy woman. In an instant, Olivia reacted and lunged at her to take the shotgun from her, causing a shot to fire into the air. Betty joined in and went to help, and they managed to snatch the gun from him. Meanwhile, I ran to the car, waiting for it to start. After several attempts, I finally succeeded. The woman was left crying uncontrollably, screaming that we had made her baby cry. Once we were inside the car, I looked in the rearview mirror as the woman was heading towards the trunk of her car, and a few minutes later, we heard gunshots. She had taken a gun and was pointing it at us and shooting. I quickly accelerated and headed towards the nearest town in search of a police station. Finally, a garbage collector who was working pointed us in the right direction, so we headed there for help. This woman could not remain free. We arrived at the police station with our hearts still pounding from the terrifying experience we had just experienced. When we explained our situation to the officer on duty, his face darkened with concern as he showed us a photograph of the suspicious woman. We were left speechless when we recognized her. It was the same woman. With a shaved head and a deranged expression on her face, dressed in worn military clothing, her wide-open eyes radiated madness, with a scar on her cheek as a testament to her experiences in the war. They informed us that they had been searching for her for more than a year after escaping from a psychiatric clinic. He had a history of schizophrenia and was ex-military. We stayed at the police station giving our statements until almost dawn. For security reasons, the agents suggested we spend the night there. As the hours passed, we did not receive updates. Apparently, the woman was no longer in the place we had indicated, but the agents found bullet casings, confirming the veracity of our story. In addition, they found the baby's blanket on the floor. That day, we headed back home, not wanting to continue our vacation. Fear gripped us, as the woman had not yet been captured and could be lurking somewhere, perhaps looking for us or plotting who knows what. The only certainty is that she will be lurking somewhere, waiting for the right moment to strike. Be careful, and if you like the story, give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss any other horror stories, which I assure you will not leave you. You sleep.